everybody.
Hello.
Yo,
Parse, that's a nice robe you got on there.
it's ultimate snugman time.
Ultimate Snugman time. You know what else? You know what else time it is right now? What time it is right now? It's
What
SportCulation time.
It's
That's
rewind
it's
time.
rewind time. Yeah.
Rewind.
Hi.
Oh.
Welcome to the SportCulation podcast. As usual, I'm Yusuf.
I'm Anton.
You already know who I am. I'm Parse.
He is indeed Parse. And I can't believe it, but 2020 is almost over. Almost over.
Almost there, guys.
Almost. We're
just-
getting there.
Just
We're
hold
getting
it
there,
hold
you
it
know?
together. Hold it together.
It's it's been a little over a year since we started the podcast, and while we didn't get off to a great start at first, we've been really picking up through this year because so much wild shit has happened. And with that, I think it's a good time that we sit down and we recap all the things that have gone on in 2020 sports wise, because as much as one might think there's actually been a lot. There's been a surprising, ridiculous, and some depressing amount of things that have gone on in 2020 in the world of sports. And we'll sit down and
Let's go
chat.
chronologically, I would say.
Let's go chronologically, shall we? And I think if anywhere we have to start is the unfortunate passing of Kobe Bryant in the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
and his daughter
his daughter.
Gianna Bryant, yep, as well as 5 other individuals that were in the helicopter with them.
Mhm.
Man,
Yeah, that really struck a chord with the entire sports world, specifically basketball, but also like the city of LA.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's not like when people die young, we often sort of uh memorialize them, but it's not like it's not like a Kurt Cobain thing where it's like in the middle of his peak. It was like kind of like afterward,
Yeah.
but like he was still pretty young.
Yeah, he was only
still
in
like
his
40
early
years old.
40s. Yeah.
Yeah, so like he still had another good like 30-40 years left in him probably.
Mhm.
So and he was like making movies and stuff, so I don't know. Yeah, what do you guys think?
I think it was really untimely just because he, like you said, he wasn't at his peak in terms of basketball. He just retired. It's been 4 years since he retired, but a lot of people had known about his personal life and that he was turning over a new leaf in that. He was on a number of interviews and Zoom calls, whatever have you, talking about his mindset and what enables him to keep going. He was mentoring a daughter who a lot of people believe would have been in the WNBA and be able to move it to further heights than where it is now and bring that inclusiveness between the WNBA and the NBA itself and promote women in sports. There was also the talk of him being an investor and pushing himself in boundaries where he was elevating his mind to understand multiple things. Taking how this guy was already speaking 5 languages and was a really good connoisseur in terms of the world. He was a world globetrotter, but with his basketball career, but also by himself. He would travel to Italy, China, Argentina, Chile, everywhere. And everybody who saw him always kind of said the same thing, that he may have been a very mean person on the basketball court, but when you meet him on the streets, he's very warm and has a lot of love to give. He turned over a chapter of his life where he was raising 3 daughters that made you see him as a family man. To a lot of people, it was a surprise and a very welcome surprise because he looked so happy. A man who's known for not showing any emotion, for being the most clutch we've ever seen, for hitting daggers and making people in their home stadiums cry and be silent because he would just look at you and the game's over. There's a 3-ball. And it was just really sad to see him go at such an early point because at that basketball chapter, even though it was closed, and we had that amazing 9-minute speech about him and his love of basketball, and ending that chapter, we were seeing a new one about to blossom in that of raising kids and being a family man. 41 years of age. It's hard to accept that he's gone. And it's even harder to see what the family's like today. To bring some news to you on what the family's like today, they have a lawsuit internally between the mother and the now widowed wife, Vanessa Bryant.
Yeah, it's between Vanessa's mother and her. And
Over
the Bryant
$5
family.
million and $96 an hour of nannying,
Yeah.
babysitting the kids. That's the kind of publicity that's coming out from the Bryant family. We also don't get to see what kind of spectacle Gianna would have been basketball wise. And it's just really sad. Gone too soon, but not forgotten.
Yeah, I think
Mira
that
was
was the
where
most sad part. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
If anything.
like this, like she was a kid, like kid, you know? And it's always unfortunate when something like that happens. Like everyone else, yeah, like it's upsetting, but like this person, she was a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, Yusuf.
Literally their whole life ahead of them. I think just going off what Parse said, I think it's honestly depressing. You know, we're coming up to almost a year of Kobe's passing, and the news coming out now is the fact that his mother-in-law demands like $5 million and X amount of money and a house or something, with some crazy fucking demands in repayment from the Bryant family for taking care of the children so long. It's like, well, you know, it's twisted, the fact that they would do this.
Well, I don't know. I think that's like just family
It
dynamics
is.
that like it's harder for
And
us to like really get into.
Exactly. And I think I always think back to like when Michael Jackson passed away, for example, and his family was like going like at each other's throat to figure out where money was gonna go after Michael's passing. But you know, this is a little different.
That's why you should always make sure you guys get a last will and testament.
Yep.
The state.
Yep. I had said this not long after Kobe had passed away, and I put this on my blog. But Kobe was an individual that truly transcended basketball. He, you know, people knew him as Kobe Bryant. They didn't just know him as Kobe Bryant, the basketball player. You just knew who he was by his name. And everything he did, people would know about, from what on the court, off the court, unfortunately, in the controversies and scandals he was involved in. But his passing is really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's been very heavy in the hearts of, I think, just about anyone that followed him. Even if they didn't follow basketball, you knew his name. Of course, the big thing, you know, when we were kids, at least, I don't know if people still do this. I hope they do. They probably do.
I'm sure they still do.
I'm sure they still do. But when you throw something into a trash can, you just yell Kobe, hoping it goes in, or you just throw anything into something, hoping it goes in. Yell Kobe. Yep.
Yeah.
You're not saying LeBron. You're not saying Larry Bird. You're not saying Jordan. You're saying Kobe.
Yeah.
Because that's how much he meant to that sport, and that's how much he meant to people, that he could be such an icon. Yep. And don't worry, in about 5 years' time, after JaVale makes the Hall of Fame, he'll be doing that.
We'll be yelling JaVale McGee.
We'll be yelling JaVale.
We'll be yelling LiAngelo.
Oh no. But you know, for the year to start off with the passing of Kobe Bryant was a very big hit to the sports world. Obviously, the worst part of it was the fact, like, the way that he had passed. Like, it wasn't that he had some kind of illness or anything, that his body was deteriorating. It was the unfortunate, you know, events of a helicopter crash, which I think, if anything, make it feels much worse.
But yeah, let's. There's like still so much year that we.
Oh yeah, there's still so much, and that was just
let's
the
try
beginning.
to get through.
So
but then after that, before everything went, you know, bananas.
Yep.
We had a cool thing
being
of
for not being demonetized. We won't say the word, but you know what we're talking about.
But we're not monetized anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Not yet. We are.
So yeah, we had the Super Bowl happen.
We did have the superb owl.
Superb owl.
Yep, it was the one year the Patriots weren't in it.
Yes.
Good, finally.
Uh huh. Yeah, we had the Super Bowl. The Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers. Anton and Parse came over to my house because that's when it was safe
For
to
the
do that
last
back
time
then. For the last
2020.
time.
There's a lot of last times in this year.
Yeah.
And a lot of first times.
That's true. And they came over, we sat down in the basement just like we'd do for any other sporting event. We'd sit down, we got some food, watched the Super Bowl go down. The 49ers had the lead. Parse kept looking me in the eye and said, "I can't believe you're finally wrong for the first time." And I looked at him and I said, "How dare you?" And then Patrick Mahomes basically turned it all around and won in the Super Bowl.
Pristine.
My streak continued. And I say it in past tense because it ended like 3 months ago.
Yeah, because it apparently only works when there's no chaos.
Yep. But we had the Super Bowl, and that was last time. At least we had like squatted up for something like that, and then following the Super Bowl, we had like other things go on here and there. Parse came over a bunch of times. We'd watched like the All-Star game for the NBA. We had watched the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight in late February. And speaking of big moments, since we're going in like chronological order, so now we've gone from early February Super Bowl, we're going to like late February now. The Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight is a night I will always remember for two specific reasons. Reason number one, the fight was not as long as I thought, and Parse and I had a very good time just hanging out, being bros, and doing whatever. Here's the thing: Toronto fans will remember that night for. That was the night the Toronto Maple Leafs lost to a 42-year-old Zamboni driver named David Ayres. That was that same night. That was this year.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Hey, we're not talking. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So there was that too.
Acknowledged.
Yeah. That if you ask me, that is one of the biggest moments in sports this year. The fact that the Leafs lost to a Zamboni driver. Their Zamboni driver. But I digress because I go after the Toronto Maple Leafs a little too much on this show. And then yeah, just a bit. Then March came around, and then
They canceled March Madness.
They canceled everything. Everything just
everything just was postponed and or canceled. The world just sort of stopped for a little bit.
Free fall, yeah. For a good 3 months, we didn't know what to watch and what to do.
Yeah,
I think it was just what to do because
the all the leagues had stopped every.
So we got to talk about the beginning of it. So Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz, decides to be a jackass, and when asked about the whole COVID thing, because that's when it was really starting to become a thing in the States, he decided it would be funny to just touch all the microphones around him, and then just walk away from his interview. And the next night, he got COVID.
Yeah, it's okay. He apologized.
He did apologize,
and the Utah Jazz was just like, all right, well, all right, we'll give you we'll give you a max extension. We'll give you another extension.
Yep, we'll give you more money.
Dude,
Thanks for getting COVID, Rudy.
$220 million.
It's a lot of money. And then they announced, okay, well this
can't
game's
even
canceled
shoot.
because COVID. I know he can't, but tell the GMs that.
Hey, he's just there for getting rebounds and stuff.
Exactly. So the NBA made the announcement that, okay, we are going to cancel a bunch of games. Anyone that was in like contact with the Utah Jazz over the last week, those games are now canceled. And that was, not a lot of teams, but a few teams were, they didn't have their games. By that night, which I believe was March 10th or 11th, the NBA had announced like almost immediately, yeah, we're shutting the league down.
Yeah, and then like all of the other teams on like March 12th, March 13th.
Yeah.
Like within the same week.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure most of them, if not all. I don't remember. I think so, like tennis even as well.
Yep. So
but don't worry, Toronto fans, because the Raptors are COVID-free.
ATM.
Yeah. But I do remember that just fondly because I had just, this is gonna sound bad, I had just been in Florida on a little trip, like right before the lockdowns and pandemic and everything really kicked off. And I was sitting in my parents' house when the news of the NBA shutdown went, and I'm like, okay, that's not good. That means the NHL's probably going to be next. And like a day passed by, it was like, okay, nothing yet. The next day, I was flying back to Toronto, so I had an early morning flight. I get on my flight, whatever, right? I fall asleep. I'm like, all right, I'll sleep on the flight. I'll wake up when we land in Toronto, and I'm like, everything will be okay. The plane's about to land, and my dad walks over to my seat and just taps me on the shoulder, and I'm like, hello. And he was like, I've got news for you. I'm like, is it we're landing? He's like, no, the NHL just announced they're shutting down. And I'm like, why did you tell me this? How dare you tell me this? And then everyone else just followed suit. And in good reason, and in all fairness. Like, March Madness had to be canceled. Yeah, that was a bummer. Tennis, like, baseball, spring training had to be canceled for baseball. Right? So, yeah, that was March.
And most
Hard to
Canadian
believe.
teams had to move to an American site.
Yeah, but that was after.
Okay, we're still in March. March.
Okay, so in March, April, people were still trying to figure out, like, all right, what's this lockdown gonna look like?
No.
And what am I gonna watch?
Couple weeks.
So everyone decided to watch Netflix. And what happened on Netflix?
Tiger King happened. Oh.
Okay. The Last Dance.
Yeah,
Let's talk
dude,
about
the
sports.
Last Dance.
The Last Dance.
The Last Dance.
The Last Dance. Yep.
It was apparently one of the most tweeted, or the most tweeted about TV show on Twitter.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So yeah, that one and Tiger King, of course.
Yes, and Tiger King.
But, since like no one else had anything to watch, and ESPN and all the other sports channels, they're like, what do we broadcast?
Yeah, like
there's nothing to broadcast old games. We can't commentate on anything.
Exactly. Like, for example, so like obviously we're from Canada and we're from like the Toronto area. We have Sportsnet and TSN. All day, like TSN was just airing old World Junior games and like World Cup games, and Sportsnet was just airing old Stanley Cup final games because they were like, the hell else are we supposed to do? And we just have to air teams that mattered because the Leafs never made a Stanley Cup final in the last 50 years.
And then the Last Dance.
Yeah,
it was like the perfect moment for the Last Dance.
It was a really good time.
Released. Everybody focused on it. Every single other day, major sports broadcasters would talk about the Last Dance.
Yeah.
And how great it was to actually see that side of Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the best part about the documentary is we got a very different and inside look on the life of Michael Jordan during the Bulls dynasty.
And it was a big boost for the Jordan brand.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yes, it was.
And if you would like to check out our listen to our thoughts on that, we also have a podcast episode where we talked about our thoughts on The Last Dance.
We do have a whole episode about that. Parse had a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was The Last Dance, and that finished, and then
and you saw that we also talked about esports and the rise of esports within the midst of no actual, in-person sports being able to run.
Yep.
Apart from like maybe golf.
Yeah. But even then, golf was like kind of wishy-washy with whether they were running or not. We did that.
This point now in June?
This point we're in like June-ish, yeah.
Yeah, at this point, a couple of leagues have started up again. What was it? EPL and the Bundesliga have started up again. NASCAR had started up again. A couple of other sports leagues have started up again. And but we're talking about the Big Five, like we
normally do, yeah.
On here. There was still much question about, up in the air about what's going to happen, and they finally decided on bubbles.
Yep. Except baseball.
Which is kind of interesting.
That turned out well because, so as far as baseball goes, because they had started the season in when was it? What day did they start? I'm gonna check that right now. No, I don't want to know what day the World Series was. I already knew that.
But while he's looking that up,
Yep.
yeah, so we had started up again with as well as MLS, Major League Soccer started up in July as well.
Mhm.
And for the NBA, they decided to choose Florida man's
Orlando, Florida.
Orlando, Florida,
Yep.
at Disney World,
At the World of Sport facility that Disney has.
and they decided to choose that as a bubble, and it went very successfully in terms of COVID cases.
Oh.
There wasn't any, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, they were clean, I think, the whole way. They had a couple scares here and there because some players had snuck out to go get nachos at a strip club, but wings. That was it. It was wings. Yeah, not nachos. Wings.
You wouldn't skip out for nachos.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know, man. Maybe they had good nachos. Yeah, like you don't know that.
But not Orlando. You wouldn't do it with Orlando. Like,
no.
If I'm wanting nachos, this got to be like San Diego, LA, Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Not Florida.
Not Florida.
Those wings in Florida, though.
Yeah.
They're skipping out.
Yeah. So the NBA announced, we're doing a bubble. We're going to be finishing. We're going to be doing the playoffs in the bubble. And it's nice that they didn't have every team there. Obviously, like the bottom few teams in the standings didn't go. So like Golden State and the Cavs, I believe, also weren't there. But
and one other team that wasn't there, and another team.
Which team could it have been?
I don't know. I don't know. You know what? I don't remember.
I'm thinking. I think it rhymes with the LaCoit Pistons. The McCoy.
Yeah, what team was that? They had a former Toronto NBA coach as well.
The Detroit Pistons. Yeah, I know.
The Bulls weren't there either.
The Bulls. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, the Bulls weren't there.
That makes me feel better. That makes me feel a lot better. But so they ran the bubble. Bubble had gone smoothly. So July is when the MLB had officially started back up. I got that. It was middle of July, and their quest to figure out whether or not they could do the whole traveling thing and make it work. Update, it kind of worked. So if we're looking at July, at this point, we would have had the NBA come back.
NHL come back.
We would have had the NHL come back.
And the MLS.
Gotta talk about baseball because that was a big conversation.
So obviously the NHL bubble came back and the NHL ran their playoffs in Toronto and Edmonton. And then we'll get to that as time goes on in this chronological order. But middle of July, we're talking about baseball. Within the first, I think it was like 3 weeks, you had like 4 teams, 5 teams, 6 teams, something like that, get players test positive for COVID. And everything became like a mess. Very, very quick.
We weren't sure they're going to keep the season going.
Yeah. I know people were calling constantly for the season to be canceled right then and there.
F1 was running, but it was on like a really weird schedule. Only a couple of races were available to driving. Like you'd race 1 week and then there'd be 2 weeks of break, which is really weird. Usually it's straight.
Yeah. Yeah. So baseball keeps going, and then COVID stuff happened, and they're like, "Well, oops."
Now we're in August.
What do we do? Now we're in August, and by August,
playoffs is being announced.
Yeah. Well, also like,
that was. If you would like to check out our podcast where Yusuf got really upset at the Toronto Maple Leafs, that one is a very good episode. You can check that out. We might link that in the show notes or the description.
I might have to do that.
That was one of the top episodes for me when Yusuf just went off on the Toronto Maple Leafs. You went for a huge rant.
Oh yeah, that whole episode was basically a giant rant. Yeah. So the NHL ran their playoffs. They had their preliminary play-in round, which I thought was nice. Having 24 teams there and then shortening it down from there to 16 was nice. It's nice to give the other teams a chance that were could have made it, just about made it. And we got some surprises out of it. We had Montreal beat Pittsburgh.
We had
I loved it.
I know. I loved
Chicago
it.
got to win, and
Chicago beat Edmonton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really good.
And we had Vancouver go way further than
anybody else.
Anybody thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
kudos to Vancouver for making it as far as, conference semifinals. But yeah, good for
I
them.
think in August is when we did crown it. Did we crown a champion then, or was it September?
September is when the Stanley Cup finals were done.
And that was when Yusuf's prediction of the curse had been broken. He was predicting that the Tampa Bay Lightning were cursed and that that they would never win
First time
a championship, but they did. Perhaps because everything went into chaos, and so that threw everyone for a loop. But Florida now has a team that people actually
did something.
respect, that they respect. So when are the Panthers gonna do something?
Never. Literally never. They have a good team, just bad management.
Our episode on that, because
we do have a whole bubble episode.
There's a little controversy on that. It was pretty fun.
It was a fun conversation.
It's when I went on a little bit of a rant.
Oh, right, with the bubble conversations about, man.
Oh, yeah, about whether or not bubble hockey is the same as
regular hockey.
Playoff season hockey.
And Scottie Pippen saying that bubble ball is not the same as actual basketball. Man.
That was a good episode. That Parse rant.
Parse rant was fun.
That was a very fun time. Parse rant.
And then after the Stanley Cup finally got awarded, we had the NBA championship awarded. And in, I think, the most fitting fashion possible for this year, the LA Lakers took the title home.
Yeah.
They did it for Kobe.
Yes.
Let's say that.
That was
it was a perfect storyline.
It was very interesting to see who was able to climb up. Like, it was really surprising to see, for me at least, to see Miami do as well as they did, and ascend to the heights and beat Boston. Boston was like this, super tough team for Toronto to beat. They had Jason Tatum, they had
Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward.
Gordon Hayward wasn't even playing for.
Gordon Hayward didn't even play. Daniel Tice, who was like a rebounding monster. Gordon Hayward is another story.
We will get
to time.
I also want to bring up the fact that LA Lakers were the only team from LA to bring home some success. We also have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another surprise
team that's been scrutinized for the last 5 years
was the Denver Nuggets. Somehow being able to, from a 3-1 loss.
From being down 3-1 in 2 different series.
Yeah. The Clippers are.
They are really,
way to go. But then there was the Dodgers. The Dodgers had.
So after that, we had the World Series, which, that was a mess. It was good. I didn't know. I had watched every game of the World Series, and
it was painful.
It was good, honestly. I think it was good. Painful maybe, but I'm working on a list right now, actually, for my blog about my favorite sports moments of this year. And one of the World Series games is on there. Game 4, Dodgers are up 2-1. It's the bottom of the 9th. Kenley Jansen is relief pitching for the LA Dodgers. Decides to walk Randy Arozarena. I literally said this screaming at my TV at midnight. This is a bad idea. How dare you do this? Randy Arozarena walks, gets on first. There's a runner on first and second. Brett Phillips gets up to bat for the Rays. Gets a walk-off. Goes out to right field. I forget who it was that tried to catch it in right field. Misses. Drops the ball. Randy and the other runner book it for home. Ball gets out of right field, goes to third, tries to get to third, goes to home. The catcher misses the ball. Rays win the game on a walk-off in the wildest way possible. But the Dodgers still won the World Series.
I forget that guy's ERA. I forget the pitcher's ERA. I also forget the batting percentage of the hitter.
Yeah.
They were low.
It was very low.
It was still crazy to see the Rays do as well as they did, though.
The Rays have proved that this.
We were talking about this
team is
2020 is the year of Florida.
It was, yeah.
And if you want to check out that episode where we talk about the Florida year, it's another great episode. Anton actually Really.
We've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, because Florida has
year of Central Florida, I guess.
Because we had Miami in the NBA Finals, we had
Or-
the Lightning take home the cup, we had the Rays in the World Series. I don't know if the Buccaneers are going to make the Super Bowl in 2021, but we'll see. I don't know.
Either way, yeah,
Florida.
Boston really hates Florida now. We all know that Boston hates the entire state of Florida.
There we go. Yep. Screw Florida. Yeah, and then
October, September territory.
no. So we've passed October at this point.
You know what we missed? We missed the fact that that they had decided to postpone the Summer Olympics.
Right.
We completely missed that they decided to postpone the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics. The IOC and Japan decided to postpone it to 2021 because it was just too much going on, and they're like, "There's no way that we're gonna be able to have everyone here."
Which the only reason I forgot about it, but I just remembered, and the only reason I even kept track of the fact that the Olympics were next year was because they were obviously going to be in the summer, and one Japanese wrestling promotion that I follow, New Japan Pro Wrestling, they hold their annual giant tournament during the summer. It's called the G1 Climax. But since the Olympics were going to be in Japan this year, they couldn't use the stadiums they normally use for their tours for the tournament. So they had to postpone the tournament to October. Now, when COVID happened and everything arrived, they were like, well, we can't move back to the summer because number one, COVID, number two, this. And they ended up doing the tournament in October of this year. So, yeah, that was one big thing about why I remember the Olympics being moved. But yeah, the Olympics are next year. The next World Cup's 2022, right? Yeah, 2022. Okay. Yeah, so now we're getting to late October, early November. By this time, all the major sports are done, and now leagues are in talks for the future. What's going to happen in 2021?
But we also have the NFL season, which had its own controversy in the beginning, but now running okay-ish.
I think they've had the same trajectory but the same path as the MLB so far, where they were hit, teams were getting hit with COVID cases left, right, and center. And people were talking about, should we cancel? You had teams closing practice facilities. They weren't training. But now we're at what are we at? Week 14, week 15?
Week 14.
Yeah.
Another thing that we kind of skipped over, which is kind of important, very important for especially North America, was in what happened in June with the Detroit
man, we completely crossed over that. We
protest,
should talk about it.
And how the leagues finally had this big reckoning over what constitutes acceptable behavior, quote unquote, from players, and they were trying to figure out what are these voices, and they're players from the NFL that were, basically there was a lot going on. But the NFL finally said that it was okay that if you decide to kneel during the anthem, and there was a lot going on. You want to share your thoughts?
We have a whole episode on that.
We do have a whole episode on that.
I think the title was called, I don't want to say that word, but it was basically all lives matter in sports, or do all lives matter in sports, something like that. And we heavily talked about the transitioning and how important it is, the dynamics of sports is affected by those voices. And it was a really good episode.
We've had a lot of conversations on this show about,
and then we had the election,
culture and whatnot go on. And
the election, I don't know how much that had to do with sports.
I don't want to talk about the election. I don't want to talk about it.
The Black Lives Matter protests, that had more focus on with the NBA players speaking up and
Every player's walking off.
and
NHL
walking
players
off, and
off
then
the ice.
NHL like not canceling games, and then all the players were just like, "Why are we still playing? I thought we we're gonna follow the lead of the NBA," and then they finally decided to do it afterward, and the people were like, "That's a little too late."
Yeah,
so a lot of going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the NBA decided to postpone games and boycott the league for a day. In that moment, the NHL followed suit a little later to some controversy, but I think it was well appreciated. The MLB also followed suit. Yeah, that was another big thing. It's wild to think that a lot has happened this year for such a very
Bayern won.
odd year. Bayern did win the Bundesliga. Edmonton's Alphonso Davies won the award for Best Player of the Year.
And that's why he got that follow from Drake.
He did get a follow from Drake, and he was also the first North American to be named onto the FIFA 11 team.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was this also the year that
He's Canadian.
The Rock purchased
The Rock purchased the XFL. That's a thing too.
That's a thing.
I'm just pulling stray thoughts.
Yeah, there was that.
Happened.
There was for the first time in history, WrestleMania had no one in attendance.
Yeah. What else? Mike Tyson came back from retirement for basically a glorified sparring match that was on pay-per-view.
Yep.
But before that, we had one of the craziest knockouts of all time.
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
We talked about this recently.
In a previous episode.
Yeah.
This was in the collab episode we talked about.
We had Mark and Ari here.
Had our first collab.
No, that wasn't the collab episode.
Which collab episode?
With Blackjack Pack.
No, that wasn't that episode. We were talking about
one.
With Blackjack Pack. We were talking about
fandoms.
Fandoms.
Yeah, we were talking about sports fandoms.
Toxic fandoms.
Yeah. But Toronto fandoms. But yeah, like a lot of wild things have gone on this year in sports. As quiet as it's been because of COVID.
Lewis wrapped up the World Championship.
But it's been good. And we're going to wrap up with the World Juniors in 5 days. Yeah. So.
And, NBA is starting back up on
the 20th.
Is it
by the time you guys are listening to this, it has already started up.
Yep.
Again.
Yep.
And one thing that I do want to say that I particularly enjoyed of 2020, if you could say that, if you could find a silver lining, is that this podcast gave us a reason to continue to meet up every 2 weeks or so to talk and just hang out like the three of us friends, because during COVID we can't really meet up in person, or we shouldn't have parties or anything. Don't have parties. And this podcast gave us that opportunity to do that.
Nope.
This was the year that we took this podcast a little more seriously. So I think
this is something I just want to wrap up with, because I was thinking about this earlier, is that it's I try anything I work on, I try to give the best of my abilities to, and this podcast I really wanted to in the beginning of it, because things were a little odd when we had started. I was like, okay, I don't know how far this is going to go. And then we stopped for a bit between December and March, April. And then when I figured out, okay, well, sports are kind of around, but things are getting weird, I said, okay, we might as well bring the show back. And yeah, I'm checking all the episodes actually right now on Anchor and Spotify. And we've been consistent all the way from April on this show. And originally it was just sporadic. I just find a random day to put up the episode. It might go up on a Sunday, might go up on a Tuesday, might go up on whatever. But last month or so, we've been putting them up every Monday. That's been good, and hope it's fun talking to the guys again. Because normally in a non-COVID world, the guys and our other friends would probably have been at my house at least 10 times by now, especially this time of year. So. Yeah, it has been a very good time.
I'm really glad to be able to just hang out with you guys digitally, and those couple times that we did it in Yusuf.
Yep, a few times that
we recorded in Yusuf's backyard.
Yeah, that was a fun experience. Yes, of
physically
course.
distance.
Yeah, well, that was a fun experience.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, yeah, I really appreciate that. Parse, do you have thoughts on our podcast?
To be honest, like this year has really gotten us to be closer as friends, and also given us kind of a something to do. It's really entrepreneurial what this whole thing has happened with us. I think we were all on our own different tangents, but very much wanting to do this. I remember the first time we ever recorded an episode, and what the ideas were about it, and to see what it's grown to now, where we have a legit schedule, you know, where we record. It's wild. It's great.
We've
Yeah.
got
So,
a
a lot of good things have
schedule.
happened.
It's nuts.
Like-
Yeah. Yeah, but to you guys for joining me on this whole thing for the whole time. That
Yeah.
I can't thank you guys enough.
How many like what's our like average listener?
Our average listener count has gone up. The last time I checked, that was about
Is it
3
double
months
digits?
ago. Yes, it is 12
is
now.
It is 12. Yo,
Yeah,
a
we
have
dozen
12.
people.
We
We
got
got a
go.
dozen people.
We got a dozen people listen to this show.
all 12 of
Yo,
you.
how many of
Um,
them are
you guys
your
are
moms,
great.
guys? How many-
How many of them are your moms?
My mom was only one, so how
There
many?
you But like
Love it.
from everyone that we have talked to, that I've brought onto the show, like the friends along the way. Of course, we had the Blackjack Pack a few weeks ago, and Parse, again, thank you for doing that and setting that up. That was a very fun time. Last week or the week before that, whichever one it was, we had my buddies Mark and Ari on, and that was a very good time with them. And occasionally, we've had Tyler on, who you'll be hearing from more, because Tyler, what I want to eventually do with the show, and I think now that we're getting somewhere with it, I can start doing this a little more, is have at least certain friends of mine as like correspondents almost, to bring in every couple of weeks here and there, especially now that sports are coming back on a regular basis. So we have Tyler for hockey. Mark is my resident baseball guy. Parse at this point is our basketball guy. We don't really need one for that unless we can get Valeri. But
I'm like the media
Anton's the media guy, and I'm bored, so I'm just gonna look at people's contracts
Yusuf
guy.
is the hockey guy. Remember, we had an episode where this guy literally
you're the
named
wrestling
off-
guy too.
That's true. I am the wrestling guy.
When all I had to
Yusuf
say
actually named off Stanley
was
Cup.
Vince McMahon.
What, Parse?
Yusuf was naming off Stanley Cup winners from each year at one point. I remember this because I was like, that is something that's
Like
brilliant.
this dude memorized the wiki.
Memorized years. Like you could just whip out a year.
Some point this year, I can't remember what, I was talking about hockey with my dad, and my sister was like, do you just have this stuff like memorized? And I'm like, try me. And she was like, okay, name every title winner from like this year as far back as you can go. And I'm like, pull the Wikipedia up. And you're like, okay. So I just started shotgunning it all the way down to about 1993. I was naming the team that won, the team they beat, who won the MVP, and she was just looking at me like, "The hell's wrong with you,
bro?" Sports Jeopardy, Yusuf, winner.
If you need
Rest in
that
peace,
call,
Alex
want to be a
Trebek
millionaire
died.
call, you call him.
Rest in peace.
Rest in
Alex
peace,
Trebek.
Alex Trebek. I was crying for a whole day when he passed away.
But yeah, also with sports, we lost a lot of people. We lost Maradona recently.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's right. We did lose Diego Maradona.
That was a very, very shocker, man.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully
him and Kobe actually respected each other. People don't know.
Yeah, we lost two big
They had
icons
conversations
like
in
in their
Spanish.
respective sports.
Respected
You know?
as because what Maradona was to football, when people have those arguments about who is the greatest football of all time, there's a consensus on Pele.
Yep.
But a lot of
There's another people who say Maradona.
Yeah, and
Yep.
that's what Kobe was to the basketball world. So they had a lot of conversations about that. But yeah, final thoughts.
I'm ready for 2021.
Yeah,
Go
I am.
Chiefs.
I enjoyed this year. I did, but it wasn't without a lot of sorrow and a lot of weird changes. Things that just made you feel uncomfortable. And I would definitely just look forward to a more positive 2021.
Yeah, this year has been a very good year.
They have
to
that,
sort of just take a look at yourself in the mirror and just
if you grew
see what's going
internally,
up.
then you did a really good job.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Well,
much what
honestly, I'd say whether or not you grew, even if you grew a small bit or a lot, if you made it to the end of the year and you're still alive, you're breathing,
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough year for
Congrats.
everyone.
Like,
Congrats.
yeah, congrats. Like, it's been a very, very hectic year.
And thank you guys for listening with us.
Yeah.
I look
Saying
forward
enough.
to
Love you guys.
2021.
Keep
with-
listening.
2021, when we
gotta
go
get better
even
we gotta get a
more
lot of content.
bombastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
work on the YouTube channel a little bit or something.
I'm going to start working on the YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
also,
I have no idea
what's
who's gonna win the NHL. That is a wild card.
the
Yeah, that too.
Detroit Red Wings?
Okay.
Yeah, the
Anyway.
YouTube channel. My other final thought here, since Anton brought up the YouTube channel, and I do want to bring this up quickly, is the YouTube channel, at least for 2021, will have a lot more content on it besides just the show. By the time this goes up, the World Juniors will be going on. Tyler and I are going to be watching the World Juniors and giving our thoughts about each game for Team Canada and Team USA, as well as players to watch out for. So that'll be up on the channel by then. And then after that, the old podcast I used to work with, Vacant Wrestling, some of the stuff we do there is going to be going up on SportCulation as well, just to use it as a hub for that kind of stuff. And any offshoot things that we do will also go up there as well for 2021.
Yeah,
that is the
I'm
plan.
thinking for the podcast, maybe like to start interviewing like professionals who work in the industry.
I am trying to get a hold of
like,
Steve Dangle. Hey, Steve, in the event that you're
maybe,
listening,
maybe journalists or
We need
like
Jen. We need Jen on here. We need
Yeah, or
I
like- or
I am
maybe
gonna
like
ask Jen.
athletes or like doctors or statisticians
Yeah,
or
yeah.
people in front office like that.
Because what
that would all
I've
be cool.
recently done with the Blackjack Pack is I'm getting a writer to come through who did
Okay.
a blog that was at one point recognized by CBC.
Oh, nice.
November 24th, 2020, when it came out, he got recognized. One of the most prominent writers in Canada and top mental health advocates.
Cool.
There you go. But yeah,
We gotta get some people in the industry on.
well, we'll get more guests, more friends along the way to hop on the SportCulation train, and yeah, I'll just do that. But man, this has been fun. Until then, I am Yusuf.
I'm Anton.
And I'm Parse.
Good. At least you didn't say you're Eric this time.
That random black guy.
Thank you for listening. Happy New Year. I don't know if we're going to be doing one for New Year, but Happy New Year. Happy holidays. And we'll see you in 2021.
Knicks
Rudolph
win
the
2021.
Red-Nosed
Let's go.
Wait, what did you just say?